Namaste everyone. Welcome to the six-part series on the contemplative arts and aesthetics of yoga. I'm your host, Dr. Pravina Rodriguez. I'm faculty at Star King School for the Ministry in Oakland, California, and postdoctoral fellow at the Jesuit School of Theology of Santa Clara University in Berkeley, California. In this series, we look at the application of eco-spirituality and eco-psychology through the lens of rasa theory and its integration in topographies like forests, rivers, sound, in pilgrimage, fine arts of rangoli, yantra, and maṇḍala. With that introduction, I'm excited to introduce today's speaker, Professor Ramdas Lamb. Dr. Lamb will be talking to us on the Aesthetics of Asceticism. Dr. Lamb teaches courses in world religions, contemporary religion and society, Indian ascetic and yoga traditions, and mysticism at the University of Hawaii. His current research focuses on Hindu monastic traditions, especially the Ramanandi Sampradaya, of which he was a sadhu, a monk, in India from 1969 until 1978. He has published widely on asceticism and related topics. Additionally, he studies rural devotional movements. Moreover, his book Wrapped in the Name is focused on the Ramnami Samaj, a low-caste social religious movement in central India. Namaste and welcome, Dr. Lamb.
Namaste ji, Ram Ram.
Dr. Lamb will be in conversation with Dr. Rita Sherma. Dr. Rita Sherma is founding director and associate professor at the Center for Dharma Studies, co-doctoral faculty, department chair of theology and ethics, and co-chair of Sustainability 360 initiative at the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley, California. Formerly, she was the Swami Vivekananda visiting professor in Hindu studies at USC Los Angeles. Dr. Sherma is co-founder of the American Academy of Religions Hinduism Program Unit. She is the founding vice president of the Dharma Academy of North America, a scholarly society for research on Hindu, Buddhist, and Jain religious studies, and serves as vice president of the Society for Hindu-Christian Studies. She has authored, edited, and co-edited numerous books. Most importantly, she is the founding editor-in-chief of the Journal of Dharma Studies. Welcome, Dr. Sherma. It's wonderful to have you both here, and I'm really looking forward to this conversation. So the structure for today's program is we will have Dr. Lamb present for about 30 to 45 minutes, and then we will have time for a conversation with Dr. Lamb. So over to you, Dr. Lamb.
Hey, Rita ji, Pravina ji, thank you so much. And thank you, everyone. So I'm going to talk today about the Ramanandi Sampradaya, as it was mentioned. That's the largest monastic order in the world today, actually. We have somewhere between 1.25 million and 1.5 million members. And it covers all the various castes, primarily central, western, and northern India are the regions from where most people come. Was begun in 14th century sometime by Swami Ramananda. We don't know a whole lot. We know there's traditions, and sometimes the traditions vary a bit. But we need to talk about the whole process of asceticism and the role of asceticism in the Hindu tradition. And it really, the Hindu tradition, Buddhism, Jainism really all start from the same source, which is the ascetic tradition and the early ascetics from where the yoga system also developed. And we can take it back probably at least about 5,000 or more years. Some say 7,000, 8,000 years, we don't know. But the practice of turning within in order to find oneself is an ancient practice. And it was first started really in India. Eventually lineages began. Some people would do one practice, other people would do other practices. And from that lineages began. And then at one point, the dominant lineage, thanks to Shankara, Adi Shankaracharya, was the Shaivites and the Naga, which are the more ascetic wing of the Shaivite tradition, of the Dasnami Sannyas tradition. And there was an annual, not an annual, There was a periodic festival that happened in India. It still happens. We know it, that it was at least 7th century. The first actual record that we get by a foreigner coming and visiting that festival is in about the 7th century. And it's called the Kumbh Mela, happens in 4 places. And on each place, it's a 12-year cycle, but they're not separated. It's not like every 3 years. But in 12 years, there is a festival at each spot. And they are primarily for ascetics. It's a time where villagers and householders can come and meet ascetics, they can get teachings, they can find a guru, etc. And the Dasnami sannyas ran it. And then we start getting around the 10th or 11th century Vaishnava ascetic groups began to began to evolve and then start participating. The Shaivites wouldn't let them. They would force them out. In fact, wars would happen literally, and there would be killings between Shaivites would attack any Vaishnavas who came, and people were killed, and as a result of it, early on in the formation of the Ramanandi Sampradaya, there was a wing, a warrior wing, and I'll talk about that. So, but that happened before Ramananda. So by the time Ramananda started, there was already this intense division between Shaivite and Vaishnavite ascetics. It is in that environment that Ramananda began his tradition. He, at the time, there was the dominant Vaishnava ascetic tradition was the Ramanuja tradition, primarily in South India. And Ramananda had a similar philosophy. I can't really say he adopted it. He had a similar philosophy. The philosophy wasn't started by Ramanuja. It's called Vasishtadvaita. But he really elaborated it. One of his earliest disciples was Kabir, the famous poet who was born and raised in a Muslim family. And so early on, Ramananda said, my order is going to be for everybody. It's not just going to be, because in the Shaivite tradition, caste was an element, and that only certain castes could be leaders. In the Ramanujacharya tradition, the same thing. High caste were the only ones who were gurus. Actually, Brahmins were the only ones who could be gurus. Ramananda said, Jati Pati Puchanakoi, don't ask caste of anyone. Jo Hari Ko Bhajan So Hari Ka Hoy. Whoever prays to the divine belongs to the divine. And so he had Kabir, who came from a Muslim family, was a disciple. He had women as disciples. He had people of all different castes as disciples. And he just promoted the idea of devotion, but devotion in conjunction with asceticism. And that is very important because he really combined those two. He says ascetic practice is important, but it's important to break yourself from your attachment to the sensual experiences of the world, your attachment or your aversion, because there's also negative sensual experiences, your attachment or your aversion. So break your attachment to that through the practice of asceticism so that you can open your heart to love the divine. The idea of liberation is there, but it's not liberation so that you never be reborn. It's liberation so that you no longer have to return to work out your own karma, but that you can now come back to help others. The Buddhists have a similar view, and it's called the Bodhisattva Vow, and a similar approach, I should say. So this idea of asceticism and devotion in combination is really important. And along with that, they kind of were influenced by the Goraknath Sampradaya, and they started including tantric practices as well. But rituals, Hindu rituals by their nature are tantric. The vast majority of Hindu rituals are tantric. The vast majority of Catholic rituals are actually tantric too. They don't call them that, but they are. So we have this monastic order developing that is combining asceticism, tantra, and devotion. And so there's an artistic element to it, because whenever you're doing rituals, the creative, artistic approach to ritual tends to make the ritual more efficacious because of what it does to you. Whenever anything that we do in life if we do it from the point of view of art. Whether we are walking, whether we are talking, whether we are thinking, whether we are creating, whatever we're doing, if we approach it with the idea that this is a piece of art, I do it from an artistic, creative approach, then it has a greater effect upon me. And it is from this that the ascetics do their practices. So one of the things that Dr. Sharma had asked me to talk about was the idea of the tilaks that Ramanandis wear. And we have in the order 4 different tilaks. Okay? Now the Shaivites in their tilak is 3 vertical lines across the forehead, and then sometimes they will put a dot, a red dot, and these are usually ashes. So 3 white lines made of ash, and then either a red dot or a red line over them. These 3 represent the gunas, which are the characteristics of nature. Nature is formulated through a combination of these characteristics, and the dot represents Shakti, to transcend the gunas, or the red line to go beyond the gunas. So the Vaishnava orders adopted a tilak with 3 vertical lines, or 2 vertical lines, it depends. The Ramanuja's 3 vertical lines. It can be a U in white with a red line in the middle, or a U that has something on the bridge, a little portion on the bridge, and then the red line. And that was the standard. There are 2 orders of the Ramanujan. The Tengalai, the vertical eye has just kind of the U, white U with the red line. The Tengalai have that mark on the bridge. So the Ramananda adopted the Tengalai tilak. And so originally that was the tilak. However, once, and Ramananda initially tried to have no confrontation with Shaivites at all, but eventually it began to happen. And so what happened, there was a very well-known Ramananda sadhu by the name of Balananda, and he was a very good warrior. And so what he said is that we have to prepare for battle. Every morning we have to wake up not knowing whether or not we're going to be attacked. And this is what happened when they would try to attend the Kumbh Melas. So he said, rather than putting on 2 colors, he just said he would create the paste and just with 3 fingers, just do 3 lines. And so that's a second tilak. So the first tilak has white, ideally, and I'll explain more how it varies. 2 white lines with a piece on the border, on the bridge, and then a red line in the middle. So that's called Lal Shree. The second one is called Lashkari. And the word Lashkar actually is a Persian term meaning army. So that's where the second tilak comes from. And then the third tilak is interesting. The stories about the 2 other tilaks are beautiful. So there was a devotee, and a Ramanandi Ascetic was a devotee, and he was primarily devoted to the goddess, to Sita. And so this was his deity. This was the focus of his devotion. And in the morning, when you're preparing for your puja, your rituals, part of the important preparation after you bathe, etc., is you put your tilak on as a prelude to doing your prayers, meditation, etc. And he only got as far as the 2 lines before he just kind of closed his eyes and thinking of the mother. And it is said that when she realized that he hadn't put the red line, which symbolizes her, on the forehead, she put her toe into the paste that he had used to use the white lines, put her toe into it and put it on his forehead. Oh. So then when after his meditation, and his followers were there, and they're going, what kind of tilak are you wearing? And he goes, I don't know. And when they told him, then he tried to wash off the dot, the bindi, and it wouldn't come off. And so then he went in and he said, "Ma, what is going on?" And she said, that I put it there for you. So that became the third tilak, and it's called the Bindi tilak, or the Pitt Shree. Pitt means yellow, right? So pitambar is yellow cloth. And why? Because he was making his tilak out of sandal paste, which is kind of a yellowish paste. So that's the third. So, right, so we have the Lal Shree, which is the dominant one, and then probably 80% wear that. And then we have the Lashkari tilak, and the Lashkari tilak maybe about 5%. And then the Pitt Shree. And that one with the Bindi is becoming increasingly popular because within the Sampradaya, devotion to Sita is also becoming very, very important. And then the last one is great. Another story, there was one of our ancestor sadhus. His focus was devotion, and his devotion was serving other sadhus. He felt, if I can feed a sadhu, then I've done good for the day. And so he devoted his life to just making food and feeding sadhus. So wherever at ashram he would be at, he would run the kitchen, and he would make all this food and feed the sadhus. And the sadhus all, and sometimes he would put on a tilak, sometimes he wouldn't even put on a tilak. He would just get to his sadhana was making food and feeding. And the other sadhus would go, yeah, he doesn't put on a tilak, but hey, his food is awesome. In fact, they would say that food from him is special, right? And so one day, there were many sadhus, and so he used a huge pot to make his, he was making curry vegetables, and he grabbed it with his, and the karais, these big pots like a wok, that they will use at the ashrams, that it can weigh with full 75, 80 pounds. And he's trying to pick it up, and it's starting, and then as he's carrying it over to where the sadhus are, it's starting to fall. He manifests 2 extra arms to grab it. So now he has 4 hands to hold it, and he sets it down, and then the 2 arms disappear. But some sadhus saw it. And so they went, uh-oh. Okay, whatever tilak he has on, that's the kind of tilak we're going to wear. And that day, he just had the U. And so then they started wearing that. And so that's called the Chatrubhuja Tilak. And Chatrubhuja means 4 arms, right? So those are the 4 tilaks that we have. Now, what's interesting is each group, each family, tends to wear a particular one. It doesn't matter. The philosophy of all 4 are the same, except those that wear the bindi tend to be more devoted to Sita, right? The Sita monk, so the divine feminine. But you will find within the various families, the monastic families, different tilaks within the same family, though generally you wear the tilak that your guru gave you. So my guru gave me Lal Shree, so I wear Lal Shree. I don't wear the others. But sometimes what will happen is, say I was a young sadhu and my guru passed away, and so I might go to another guru to continue learning, and he might wear a different tilak, so I might start wearing his tilak. So that's what happens. But the philosophy that we get within them is essentially the same, and it is the idea that you're putting on the tilak because it's the feet of Ram. Okay, so the two lines are the footprints of the divine. The red line in the middle is the divine feminine. So it has a couple of different meanings. On one level, it is the feet of the unmanifest, and the red line is the manifest, the all creation, which is feminine. And so that's one of the meanings of the tilak. Another meaning of the tilak is one line is Ram, one line is Lakshman, because Ram and Lakshman and Sita go into the forest together to fight the demons. And of course, the demons are the ego and your attachments and all of these other things. So the 2 lines represent Ram and Sita. And then, Ram and Lakshman, protecting Sita, and Sita is Shakti, the power. Protecting her, actually, it's what it is saying is you use your power, but use your power within the framework of morality and ethics, within the framework of truth. So the tilak represents the guidelines that you use to use your Shakti on the path to enlightenment and on the path to serving others. So that's the essential meaning of the tilak. Now, where do you wear it? Well, what most people see is it on the forehead, and that's generally where the tilak is worn, on the forehead. But in our Sampradaya, you actually wear it on 12 places. You wear 12 places on your body. But not everybody does that. I think I've only put it on places maybe twice, right? And it's usually done at certain ritual performances. And that's, most people don't put on all 12 tilaks every day. Some monastic orders, their guru says you got to put them all on, but that's extremely rare. My guru said, it's good to put on one at least, right? So that's what I would do. And then they would say, just focus on your sadhana. But so I'm going to show you some pictures to give you an idea of what those tilaks look like. Okay, so that is Lal Shree. Obviously, it's not just a red line, because this is a ritual. This was at a Kumbh Mela. Actually, I'm sorry, but the picture is turned around. For those of you who can read Devanagari, you can realize it's actually backwards. But that's okay. You get the picture, right? And he is a Terabai Tyagi. So within the monastic order, there are Dharniyas, Tyagis, Nagas, and Snehis, and they represent different approaches, different philosophical approaches to the divine. The Tyagis are the ones that practice the most forms of physical austerities. Okay, and this is a Tyagi teacher. He was, when I took this picture is like 50 years old. I took this picture in 1971, actually, and it was at the Ardha Kumbh Mela, the half Kumbh Mela in Prayag at the time. And so he's one of the leaders of the Tyagi section. And so that's his tilak. And then you notice that it's white and it's supposed to be a red line, but the Tyagis in when they do, especially in performance, I should say, when they're doing processions, they like to put they like to be seen, I guess. So as you see, this is the same thing. But if you notice, his is larger. It goes from the end of his eyes. This one does the same thing. This one doesn't. It only goes halfway, and he's using yellow. So what is he using? He's using what we call Gopi Chandan. And Gopi Chandan is made with the mud from the Ganges mixed with milk. And so they take from a particular spot in the Ganges, and it's in the Ganga, and it's up in the mountains, and they take it and then they mix it with milk and they dry it in a particular way. And we call it Gopi Chandan. And so you can get it at the puja stores. And it looks like, I don't know if you can see it, I have it in a bag here, but this is what it looks like, right? And so you take it and you put some water in your palm, and then you rub it there and it makes that, and then you can use your fingers to make it. Or sometimes you use a particular spoon that has a very thin end that you can put it on. But a lot of times they just use your finger. You can see he used his fingers, they use their fingers. This one is using sandalwood paste, and that's okay, because one of the most important elements of art is individuality. If Pravinaji makes something and I copy it, I'm not an artist, I'm just a copier. So be creative, be artistic. And so you see every sadhu will make the tilak the way they want to make the tilak. And within the order, it's totally fine, because you are the artist. Create your own life. Make your life be a form of art. So this is what they're doing, right? Let's see here. Okay. Now this is an interesting. So did you get when I changed the picture? Are you able to get that? Okay. So he is a Chatrubhuji. So if you notice, there's two lines. So I told you about the many different spots. So there's one on the shoulders, one on the upper arm, one on the neck, one on the forehead, one on the heart, one on the third chakra. And then next to the third chakra on both sides there is, and then on the back, the lower back, there's one, and then there's one at the either the top of the head or in the back of the neck representing the top of the head, and those are the 12. Now, if you notice, he has the 2 lines with nothing in them, and what is that? So that's a Chatrubhuja. Okay, so he has a Chatrubhuja Tilak, and so all of his tilaks, there's no white, there's no red. And notice his belt. He is called a kathā. So what he is wearing is a belt made of wood. And what they do is they take and it's got brass rivets that hold it together. Once you put it on, you cannot take it off. Now, once again, I took this picture decades ago. I saw him recently, and he had taken it off after 32 years. So for 32 years, he wore that belt. Imagine what it's like sleeping with something like that. That's called tapasya. Right? And so his ashram, which is in Vrindavan, they now have his belt in a little case there. In fact, he recently, I think last year, the year before, he passed away. And so now his disciples, that's what they all wear. Okay, so that is a Chatrubhuja. Okay. Now, what's that? Well, it's actually whatever he wants it to be. Okay, so he's using no red. When I first looked at it, I thought it's probably a Lashkari, or maybe it's a Chatrubhuja. And then I noticed he's also got bindis on it, and I thought it also could be a Bindi Shree. But once again, the idea of create your own, do your own, your ritual must be your own artistic creation. So as long as he's wearing it, it's fine. Now, another thing that we wear is what is called a kanti. And a kanti is a necklace, and it's made with the wood of the tulsi. Now, for sadhus, generally 1 bead. Okay, so for me, this is it's a whole string, right? And if you notice, ISKCON people, they wear a whole string. Sometimes they wear 2 or 3 strings. But for Ramanandi sadhus, it's usually just 1 bead, and they refer to it as the hira. And hira means diamond, so that's their diamond. And if you are not wearing your hira, you should never. If you're not wearing your tulsi, you don't eat. So if their hira breaks or their rope breaks, until they put it back on, they cannot eat. So that is, okay, that's one. Now, there is a ritual that Tyagis do, which is sitting in a fire, a fire built around them made of dried cow dung. They do this 4 months a year as a form of austerity. This was the first day. So the first day of spring is the first day that they do their ritual. And so they're all putting on the tilaks. Now, what is his tilak? A bindi tilak. And if you'll notice the others, I'll show you some others. Most of them, now they're all disciples of a guru who wears bindi. So they're wearing bindi. Oh, I thought I have another picture of them, and I'll show you. But what's interesting is this particular sadhu is also a disciple, but he wears Lal Shree. They all wear Bindi Shree, and he wears Lal Shree. Okay. This was my family. Okay. So, and what's interesting, if you notice, Lal Shree, he's wearing Chatrubhuja. He's wearing bindi. He's wearing Chatrubhuja. He's wearing Chatrubhuja. Right? And others, who knows what they're going to put on. Right? So, and it could be that their initial teacher was Chatrubhuja, and then they came to my teacher. But they are all Tyagis, and so if you'll notice, what he's wearing here, this is a rope. And the cup is made from the skin of a banana tree. So they strip the skin of it and they dry it unless they wear it. So he wears no cloth. He's allowed to wear a piece of cloth here because he got wounded. He got a bad cut. And so Guruji said you have to put on a cloth on that. This one, all banana. That is rolled up banana skin from a banana tree. This one is also rolled up skin from a banana tree. That one is rope and cloth. And these two, their langoti is all banana. So, and if you notice, they all have hiras. Okay, so they're all wearing hiras. And what they're covering their body with is ashes. And this is what Tyagis do. And that's a part of the dress. That's a part of you. Why do you put on ashes? Because my body is dead to the world. So when someone dies, then you burn the body. So what they are doing is symbolically saying, every morning I cover my body with ashes. In other words, every morning I'm going to be dead to the things of the world so that my heart can be open to God. And as you can see, sometimes there's some very young boys. The youngest boys I've ever met within the Sampradaya start when they're about 7 years old, become sadhus when they're about 7. And what he's wearing here, what he's holding here is a kamandal, which is made of a gourd pot. And that's standard item for Ramananda, for Tyagis, for the Tyagi wing of the Sampradaya. And then this was 1971, there was a jalus, which is a procession of all the heads of the Tyagi branch. And you can see some pretty large Lal Shrees there. This one is actually a Laskari. This is a Laskari Bindi, Laskari Tilak, but the others are Lal Shree. So this is actually Lashkari. He's a Lashkari, but he's in the Mahatyagi, he's in the Tyagi. And then you see this, and the sandalwood paste on the side. The sandalwood paste on the side represents devotion to Sita and Ram. And we may end up talking about that. But so you can see over here Lal Shree. So these are all standard Ramanandi Tilaks, the Lal Shree Tilaks, except for this one. And that's all his hair. This was one of my.
Can you go back one slide? The what looks like the hat are here, is his dreadlocks.
Yeah, it's dreadlocks.
And if this picture alone gives us a snapshot into the aesthetics of asceticism, because there is artistry in the hair, complex artistry. There's artistry, of course, in the complexity of his tilak, and then of the making of garlands, the wearing of it in the hair, which you showed in the previous slide. Can you go back one slide? So here you have, as you were saying, that the individualism showing through. They're individual artists, right?
Yep.
So
Yep, absolutely.
Even the way they anoint their, of course, foreheads with the tilak, but also in terms of how they wear the flowers and how they drape the flowers on themselves, right?
Yeah, yeah. Now, because it's procession time, this is why they're given all these time. Many of these, most of the time, they're wearing nothing but a langoti, right? Which is the banana-made genital covering. And sometimes they'll have, and they will go months at a time and have wear nothing but that. But on procession time, then it's very artistic for the processions.
So is that part of the body becomes an offering to the divine?
Yes, absolutely.
A walking
absolutely.
altar?
Yep. And because all of the people are there, all of the people who come to the Kumbh Melas, you're there to watch the processions of the sadhus, right? And so then people get attracted to them, and then they go to them and to take teachings. And so it's a way of showing the people we are ascetics, but we are kings in our world. And we're happy to share that power, which is the power of wisdom and devotion with you.
I'm also noticing white jasmine that is woven through underneath. And of course, the white jasmine is deeply associated with Shiva.
Yeah. Yeah. And in the Ramananda Sampradaya, the white jasmine is also associated with the goddess, even though it's not red, but because of its fragrance, it's associated with the goddess.
Thank
Should
you.
I go on? Yes. Okay. So let's see here. Okay. So this is my uncle. Okay. So he's my guru's guru brother. He was a Mahatyagi. Mahatyagis take the vow of living under no shelter. In fact, this was a rare moment when I found him actually sitting in the shade. Most of the time, he would not even sit in the shade. He never wore clothes. The only thing that he would wear is the langoti made out of the skin of the banana tree and a sacred thread made out of munja grass, which is sacred grass, and then his hira made of tulsi. And then you see the gourd pots. So the Mahatyagis have these gourd pots. And this was him shortly before he left his body. And you can see he's got the Lal Shree, right? The Tilak, which is our family. That's our family's Tilak primarily.
Can you share a little bit about the kula, the idea of the family of Ramanandi Sadhu?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a triangle. Think of it as a triangle. And in the middle of that triangle is the guru. Okay. The top point of the triangle is the guru's guru. So that's our grandfather, or if it was female, it would be our grandmother. So there's three generations. There's me, there's my guru, and there's my guru's guru, or my grandfather, my grandparent, right? And then the reason it goes out like this is because this one has several disciples on line with the guru. So what are those? Those are my aunts and uncles. And that's what you refer to them as. My chacha guru, my chachi guru. So they're like gurus, but they don't have the same respect that you give to your guru, but you respect them because they are in that lineage above you. And then their disciples are your cousins. And that's the triangle. So that is the family. Now, when somebody of in my generation becomes a guru, then he has or she has disciples, and then that's the bottom line. And then they go back to my guru. So my guru becomes the grandfather guru, and then they are the guru and their disciples are share. And so these, and that's where the main teachings are. And so those teachings can move, right? As you have different experiences. So my guru, for example, my Dada guru had 4 main disciples. One of them was my teacher. And what did he do? He spent all of his time teaching the Ramayana. And he would travel all over Western India, Northern India, preaching on the Ramayana and Tulsidas and devotion. But his guru brother, Ram Charan Das, was a Mahatyagi. He did extreme austerities. He lived oftentimes in the mountains, sometimes in the snow, no clothing, just the langoti, right? One of the most peaceful people I ever met. I mean, I think you can see it in him. Just a really, he was at peace. He knew his relationship with the divine, And that was the energy that carried him. And then another disciple did rituals for people. And he would travel around and just do rituals for people to help people. You have a problem, we'll do a ritual for you, just help you. In other words, doing the ritual with the idea that take your problems and put them at the feet of the divine. And that's how you're going to solve your problems. Don't try to solve your problems by doing this or doing that. Go straight to the source. And the source is the divine. You got a problem, you go to the divine. My guru once said to me, if you want to love, love God. If you want to be angry at God too. Right? But it's just like whatever your thoughts should be directed to God. Whether they're good thoughts or bad thoughts, direct them all to God and you'll be safe. Okay. Now, this was the earlier picture that I told you that they were starting that fire puja, and all of the others were wearing the bindi tilak, but he's wearing the Lal Shree, even though he's in the same family. And I'm not sure why. I didn't ask him. I should have asked him. And then this is also, he was in that group too. And the reason is because his guru had passed away. He was a householder who then became a disciple, became a sadhu. And his guru passed away. And so he went to the guru of the others and said, can I become your disciple? And he said, yes, but he continues to wear the tilak that his original guru had given him. And you can see all the different places that the marks are. There, talk about art. How's that?
Amazing.
Yeah. And this one is beautiful. What tilak is this? This is a Lal Shree. So what is this here? That's his own creation, right? He decided, and I talked to him about it. He said, the Lal represents the mother, and he said, I put my head at the feet of the mother. So these are her feet. That was his own creation.
So it's a contemplative praxis every time they do the.
Yeah. Now this is a Lashkari. Okay, so the three white. We have what is called dwaras. So in each town, there is a center for all the Ramanandis in that town, and that's called the dwara. And so he was the head of the dwara for many years in Prayag. And so I got a chance to meet him on a few occasions before he passed away. Now this is interesting. This is the Ram Lila, but it's the Ram Lila put on by Ramanandis. So it's Ramanandis who do all of the artwork. And what's interesting, so you can see what's the tilak, Lal Shree, and this is Sita. But for Sita, there's only a bindi. And I mean, to watch these sadhus put on the makeup of these kids is awesome. They'll spend, to do this, probably took them 3 or 4 hours. Right? And once they put it on the children, because these are young boys, then they are no longer young boys, they are Ram and Sita. And so they need to be carried to the stage. They're not allowed to walk on the ground. They're carried to the stage, and then they do their act. And after they do their play, they're carried back. Once the tilak is washed off, then they are kids again.
So it's like when we have an icon and you have the ceremony of prana pratishta.
Yes,
exactly. The evocation of prana or life force into that icon so that it actually represents the divine directly. And this is like a living prana pratishta.
It is. The putting on of the makeup is prana pratishta, puja.
And so the yogis who are the sadhus, the holy ascetics, for them, this is a sacred act, it's an offering, and
Absolutely.
they are essentially involved in a prana pratishta performance with living icons.
So I talked to several of the sadhus who do that. And to do that, they fast the day before. And from the morning, from the time that they get up until they're complete with this, they don't talk to anybody. The kids know what's going to happen. The kids come and sit there. The sadhu, and it's usually one sadhu for each doing the thing. And you can see it's puja for them. They are doing sadhana when they're putting this on. Their focus is just so beautiful, so amazing. And then carrying them to the stage, it's really something to watch. This was another set. Okay, so now these are sadhus doing the Duni Tap, which is, and once again, let's talk about art. So when you first begin, you take five stacks of dried cow dung, broken dried cow dung, and you make a circle with 5 stacks. And then after 3 years, then you make a circle with 9 stacks. And then after 3 years, you make a circle with 12 stacks. And then after 3 years, you make 84 stacks. And then finally, after the 3 years of that, then you just make a circle. And you light it and you sit it, and you do this during the four hottest months of the year. And you wait till the hottest time of the day, and then you light these fires and you sit there from 1 to 3 hours just doing puja. And you can see the tilak, how is that? It just covers his entire face. But that's Mahatyagis. Mahatyagis are the most creative in their lives. And you can see they put, like this one, when he puts on his tilak, all he did was just put like 1 mark rather than the whole thing. Some of them do that, some of them, like these, did. A lot of times the ones that are about to do Duni Tup, they will just do that. This one obviously put the more elaborate tilaks on. So you see, this is, so he's sitting there to do his Duni Tup, but he puts his tilak on right there first before he does it. Now these two are the same tilak, right? It's the Lal Shree, but you see each person does it their own way. And you see how far, a lot of times the mark is just on the bridge right there. This one comes halfway down his nose. This sadhu didn't speak. I saw him for years. Whenever I'd go to a mela, I'd look for him and I'd sit with him. He just grunted. I'd put out to him and he'd go, and then he'd look at me and he'd make some hand motion and I would say something and he'd go,
So he was under a vow of silence, Mona.
Yes. Yep. So that was the only sound he made. This one, this is a rope. That's what I wore, a rope. Right? And once you put on the rope, then you tie it so it doesn't come off. But then his genital covering is actually woven grass, dried woven grass. Okay, so his tilak is simply a mark. And then once again, a bindi. So this is a bindi tilak. And here's those young boys, the first time that they're doing the dunitap. So you see they're marking their bodies, and they're all doing the bindi tilak, except for that one. Obviously, one of the elders. Now, this one is interesting because on one level, you look at him and you go, okay, well, he's got a Lal Shree tilak, but you notice he's not wearing a hira. He's wearing a whole set of tulsi, which gives the suggestion that actually he is a rasik sadhu, which means the rasik sadhus believe there is only one male, and that's Ram, and all the rest of creation is female. And so devotion to the goddess as Saki, so they're called the Saki Sampradaya. So in other words, they are Sita's girlfriends. And when they do their puja, they'll take the cloth and they'll put it over their head like a sari. And when they refer to themselves, so they won't say "Main jata hoon," they'll say "Main jati hoon." And I think he is I spoke with him, I didn't ask him, but just speaking with him, I got the sense that that's what he was. Okay, this guy also didn't speak, except Sitaram. And one of my favorite sadhus to spend time with, whenever I would go to them, I would always see them at the annual melas. And when I'd go do him, see if I could do something for him, spend time with him, just talk to him. And it was just always Sitaram, Sitaram. You look at me, Sitaram, 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 Sitaram. And he never wore anything but a thin cloth. He wore a cloth, so he wasn't a Mahatyagi. He just wore a thin cloth. It's called the achala around his waist, and a langoti, and that was it. And you notice that these are disciples of his, but this one is wearing a lashkari. He's wearing a bindi. He's wearing a Lal Shree. He's wearing a bindi, and he's wearing a Lal Shree. So once again, they were probably took initiation from somebody else, but got attracted to him and just started spending time with him to learn. And this one, when he does his fire puja, he also puts fire on the top of his head in a pot. So you can see that this is all banana skin. This is my cousin guru. So my Chacha guru, who is a Mahatyagi, my uncle guru, this is his disciple. He didn't shave, but he never grew facial hair.
Was that a vrata, a vow that he took?
Well, no, he just, in other words, most sadhus don't shave, and you would think that he would have a beard, but he never grew facial hair. I don't know why, but we would spend weeks together. And he was a Mahatyagi. He lived outside. Everything in his bag, I mean, he had a small bag and that was it. And so he was a real good tapasvi. Very happy guy. Yeah, why? For some reason, Ramji didn't have him grow hair on his face. So these are, so here, this is the way you prepare your jata, your matted hair, is by using the ash of the sacred fire. So you roll it. So as you bring your hair down and you take the ash and you roll it, and that's how you make the rolls. Now you can see the red, he's wearing a Lal Shree here, but all the rest, that's just his own creation. The reason, whenever I would see him, he wouldn't wear a tilak on his forehead, he wore his tilak on the heart chakra. And then he would just put this stuff on. Okay, how's that?
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure.
So we'll stop share, and what I can do is, if you stop share, then I will show you some pictures that we can go over, just so that those listening can be clear. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about is how the Ramanandi Swamis, sadhus, are really distinct. I mean, first of all, it's one of the largest orders of Hindu sadhus. Second of all, they're Vaishnava. They worship Rama, and they worship other forms of Vishnu. To them, Shakti, or the Divine Mother, is Sri Lakshmi. But at the same time, they are ascetic in a style that is very associated historically with those yogis who follow Shiva. In other words, Shivite yogis. So you think of Vaishnava Swamis as very much involved in beautiful temples and complex pūjas, worship ceremonies, and involved in householder activities. And, you know, the other thing is that they have varna and they have jati. So they work within the structure of these endogamous guilds that came to be called caste. And here you have a Vaishnava monastic order, which is very far from all of that. They are highly ascetic, very egalitarian, and they do not observe jati or varna. And yet they arise, I mean, they trace their spiritual lineage back to Ramanuja, who is one of the founders of systematic Vaishnava theology and a systematic Vaishnava monastic order.
Well, they on some trace it back to that. Others say no, that we adopted their tilak only, and that the philosophy predated Ramanuja, and the philosophy that Ramananda took, that Vasishtha-dvaita, he tweaked it in a way that Ram and Sita are co-equal divinities. In other words, the form and the formless are the same. And so Tulsidas says, aguni saguni katu nehi veda. There is no difference between the form and the formless. So the manifested is the Divine Mother, the unmanifested is Ram, and they're all one.
And so this is so interesting because the Shaivite and Shakta tantric traditions, and and Shaktism as a whole, and Trika Shaivism, all consider that the divine is one. That's biune divine with two aspects that they live within you. Right?
And so in that way, the Ramananda philosophy is much closer to that than to Ramanuja.
Right. And yeah, interesting thing though is their bhaktas, and that your sampradaya believes in anugraha, in grace, in the ashirvad of the deity, as in the story you told about, I think, I've forgotten the name of the person who experienced the blessing, the anugraha, grace of the Divine Mother on his tilak.
Yeah.
So this is different from, you have worship and you do have the idea of praise in Shaiva Siddhanta, the southern tradition, but the northern tradition, which has now shrunk because it was based in Kashmir, but it has shrunk. But it's still a powerful tradition philosophically, and that's Trika.
Yeah.
Have a very strong development of these particular shared orientations of the heart and mind. So Shaiva Siddhantas of the South also seek grace, they also seek bhakti, but ultimately they culminate in a non-dualism. But in the Tantra of Trika, the Kashmir Shaivism which is where it started, the idea is that your job is to recognize yourself as Shiva. And Shakti lives within you in the senses and your body, and they are one. And Shiva, Shakti, Amarasa, one essence, one taste. And I see that the Ramanandi Sampradaya and its arts and its ascetic arts seem to me to be very aligned with both sides. And yet you have Ram Katha, you have Ram Lila, the drama, the plays of the life of Sri Rama and Srimati Sita, and the idea of the world as the feminine, because it is created by her, from her. It is her. It is her manifest. Your body is her, your mind is her, the whole world is her. And that, you see that in Shaktism in a profound way, of course, in Shaivism too, but the idea that there's only one male, there's only one masculine, and that men are to understand themselves as feminine in relation to the divine, that comes from, that is aligned with Krishna Bhakti. Which which doesn't, especially the Krishna Bhakti that we see in the medieval tradition of North India, but also in Gauriya Vaishnavism. So it seems to me that the Ramanandi tradition is ecumenical, and there's a synthesis within it of many different threads, many different rivers that come to this ocean of the Ramanandi Sampradaya.
And I think when Ramananda, and that quote that you can hear all the time within the order, Jati Pati Pucha na koi, Jo Hari ko bhajan, so Hari ka hoy. Whoever prays to the divine belongs to the divine. And the idea that in whatever way, whatever form you approach the divine, in that form the divine will accept you, and in that form you can find the divine. And so the idea of limiting how you do it, the Tilak is a perfect example of it. Be creative. Find Ram, Sita, find the divine within you. And the way you're going to find it is going to be different the way I'm going to find it. So your sadhana will be your sadhana. My sadhana will be my sadhana. You're muted.
So the great exemplar of bhakti, of devotional love to the divine, is Hanuman.
Yes.
And Hanumanji in the Ramayana is assisting Sri Rama. But I want you to tell the story of when Rama asks him, who do you see me as?
Yeah.
And his complex response.
And we find this in the Adhyatma Ramayana. He says, Deha buddhya tudasoham. In other words, when I think of myself in relation to you, as a body, I am your servant. Deha buddhya tudasoham. Jiva buddhya tudansika. But as an individual soul, I'm an extension of you. Atma buddhya tomevahi. But as universal soul, I and you are one. Iti nishchatamati. Of this I am certain. Did we lose Rita ji? Are you there? Hi.
Technical. But I would like to share some of the images that you spoke about. And if you could just give me give us the name of that particular type of tilak, it would be fantastic. There's like just 3 or 4 images at most.
So the Lal Shree. So do you want me to see some of the tilaks, images again?
Pulling it up. I'm just pulling it up. So, when you talk to us about the aesthetics of asceticism in the Hindu tradition, it really takes the world that we're looking at, the world of the mandir, and it internalizes it.
Yeah.
And the art becomes on the body of the worshiper, the sadhu, and the body becomes an altar. Would you agree with that?
And as you know, when we approach it that way, then our actions become tantric.
Yes.
So I remember because I used to spend time high in the Himalayas. I would just go up above the tree line. The tree line is at 12,000 feet. So I would go up above it, and then I would just spend a week or 2 up there. And sometimes finding water to bathe or to drink was very difficult. And sometimes I would find a stream. If I wouldn't go up there in the wintertime, I would go up there usually in August. August and September is the time that I would go up there. It would be cold, but it wouldn't be freezing, right? And I would find a bit of water. And so my teacher would say, so your bath has to be a tantric bath, which means every drop symbolizes a cup of water. And so you're imagining you're taking this bath, you're taking this water and you're sprinkling it on yourself. And as you're doing that, you're visualizing this whole cleansing process. And it takes so much longer than a regular bath, right? A regular bath can happen in 2 minutes. To do a tantric bath takes like an hour because of all the visualization. But what does it do? It drives you so deep within in order to be able to experience what you need to experience to become cleansed. It's amazing.
It's a form of puja of the mind, manasa puja.
Yeah, absolutely.
What happens now? Okay, so give us the name for this foundational tilak.
Yeah, so this is called actually what this is the Ramanuja Tengalai Tilak. Our tilak would be square at the bottom. It wouldn't be at a point. It would be if you were to cut off just the tip of that. A little bit lower, right there. Yeah, then it would be more art. And so that was called Lal Shree. And the bottom area, that flat area across the bottom, is called the Singhasan.
Lal Shree, and this part is the Singhasan.
Yeah.
Now, here is the representation of the
Yeah.
feet of the Lord.
Yeah.
And
So think of the 2 feet as the 2 white lines.
right.
Yeah. So what he's wearing, no, see, those are all Lal Shree Tilaks.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's got rice in there.
Yeah.
And here we have the same Lal
Yep.
Shree Tilak,
Yep. That's the most common tilak you're going to find in India.
but this is different.
Now here, this is actually a Lal Shree, but he's using yellow instead because he probably didn't have any Shree. So the option is to use sandal. Now the Shree, and because we don't use kumkum, okay? And the 2 of you know what kumkum is. That's the red stuff that women put in the part in their hair. And it stains. If you put it on, it stains you. It stains the skin. Sadhus don't want that. The Lal Shree that we use is made of turmeric. So you take a turmeric root and you soak it in lime juice. And you soak it in lime juice for 3 or 4 days. Then you take it and you grind it with some rock lime together. And you get this red that you put on, and when you wash it off, it washes away. So it doesn't stain. But that stuff is hard to get because not everybody can make it. And so if you're living in a place and you run out of it, then you might use sandal instead. You're muted.
Like in this case.
Yeah, like in that case.
Okay, well, that was remarkable. And I would like to ask Dr. Rodriguez if she would like to ask any questions. I'm sure there's many, but given time.
Dr. Lamb, the only question I have is, it's, I was thinking of Vijaya Nagarajan's quote that the bindi, of course she uses South Indian terms, pottu and kolam, that the bindi or the tilak is to the body what the rangoli is to a house, and it seems like it's a way of marking time and space, and marking the body in such a way that it becomes, as Dr. Sharma said, like an altar. And what I was wondering is that there are just so many different ways of marking, and what I'm thinking is, what about people who don't mark at all? What about people who are in places where it's difficult for them to mark because of certain reasons, or the reasons could be social reasons, or any other pressure that they might feel.
Well, so in that case, what Dr. Sharma mentioned, manas puja, right? So the visualizations that I talked about, so that's what you do. You put on your tilak. You just don't use anything physical to put it on, right? And so you go through the whole process, even though there's nothing in your hand. You visualize the gopi chandan, you visualize putting the water in there, and you go ahead and you mark it. And the whole time you're visualizing that you are putting the feet of the divine on your forehead, and that you're putting the power of Sita Mother in there. You're doing all this internally, right? You may be doing that ritual motions with your hands, but there's nothing in them, and you're doing it internally. So the idea of putting a tilak on is very important, however you choose to do it, right? And because it's dedicating, and I think you might have suggested that, what Vijay had probably was suggesting, you're dedicating your body to the divine. Each morning, and that's why you bathe first, and then you put your tilak on as a part of your puja, right? And if I can show you one other picture, it's of another way of of marking your body. Okay, and let me go here just a minute. Okay, Let me see here. Okay, so if I can do a share screen again.
Yes.
That's marking your body. Right? And these are the Ramnamis, the people in central India. That are, and if you notice, so the bindi, so you can see this picture, right? Yeah. You notice the bindi? So she has a tattooed bindi. And what is it made up of? Ram, Ram, right? Along with everything else. And for those of you who are not familiar with this is Ram, 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 Ram. All of the tattoos is simply the name of Ram repeated, right? That's marking your space. And what the Ramnamis say, my body belongs to God. When you own something, you put your name on it. Ramji owns my body, so we put his name on it.
And you met her, isn't it?
Oh yeah. I spent years with these people.
Yes.
She's an amazing lady. A really, really, yeah. In fact, let me show you I think one of the holiest women I have met in a long time is this woman I'm going to show you here. Okay. Did you get a new picture or not?
Yes.
Yes. She became a Ramnami when she was like 13 or 14 years old. When I met her, she was like 21, 22. And already you could just see the light in her eyes. I used to spend time with her and her husband a lot. Whenever I would go into the area, they would hear I was coming, and they would invite me over, and I would spend days at their house and just satsang with them. But the beauty and the wisdom and the love that came from this woman just was, I would always leave feeling I had had a really true experience.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lamb. This is a really wonderful presentation. And
Thank you.
And we would really love to hear more. I really hope that you can maybe guest lecture in one of Dr. Sherma's classes or something like that. But I would like to thank you both for this wonderful conversation, and also thank our viewers for listening. And I encourage you to purchase Dr. Lamb's book, Wrapped in the Name. And you can find more information on Dr. Sherma on her website, ritasherma.com. Thank you very much. Namaste. It's been a pleasure.
To both of you, thank you so much. Namaste.
Namaste. Thank you so much.